Hey guys, welcome to the part 3 of the Extraterrestrial Encounters Iceberg. It's basically just an hour of stories of encounters with aliens and UFOs. And yes, this is the final part of this iceberg. So without further ado, let's begin the video with the first entry. In April 1977, Dover, Massachusetts, a typically peaceful town, was gripped by a series of eerie encounters with a mysterious creature, later known as the Dover Demon. The sightings began on April 21st when 3 teenagers, Bill Bartlett, Mike Mock, and Andy Brody, spotted an unsettling figure while driving along Farm Street. Bartlett, the first to notice it, described a creature with an oversized round head, large glowing orange eyes, and rough, hairless skin with a texture similar to sandpaper. Later that night, another local teenager, John Baxter, reported a similar experience after leaving his girlfriend's house. He described encountering a creature with a monkey-like body and a head as large and oblong as a watermelon. As he watched, the being retreated into the dense woods, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The creature's physical characteristics, its oversized head, slender limbs, and glowing eyes, didn't align with common descriptions of extraterrestrials. Some believed it to be a cryptid or an unidentified animal species rather than an alien. Skeptics have proposed various explanations over the years, suggesting the creature could have been a baby moose or a fabrication. The Caramel area creature was reported in Caramel, Ohio, on December 12, 2014, by a former Marine, age 60, and his wife, as they were driving close to their residence in the Forehill region of southeastern Highland County. Describing the being, the Marine noted it stood about 7 feet tall, with a lean, gray body, unusual muscular legs that bent backward at the knee, and appeared to lack arms. This strange figure appeared abruptly as they drove along Cara Road late at night. When their truck rounded a curve near Caramel Church and began ascending a small hill, the creature suddenly crossed the road just 10 feet ahead of them before disappearing into the nearby woods. Additionally, about a month after they moved into the area, the Marine noticed a circular patch in their yard that remained vibrant and green despite seasonal changes. This unusual greenery, along with the sighting, spurred speculation about the creature's origin. Some believe it could be a cryptid unique to the area, or even an extraterrestrial due to its distinct physical traits and sudden movements. Others suggest it might have been a misidentified large bird, such as a stork or crane, though this theory doesn't explain the missing arms or the creature's unusual speed. In Casablanca, California, on August 22, 1955, a group of children experienced a strange incident in the backyard of Mr. and Mrs. Douglas. Initially, the children spotted a hovering object, which quickly transformed into a rotating disc with curved lines extending from its center. Shortly after, additional silvery, semi-transparent objects appeared, producing musical sounds and flickering in and out of sight. The children also observed orbs in colors such as red, blue, orange, and silver, which moved with high-pitched sounds that matched their motions. 2 unusual figures accompanied these lights. One was a transparent figure wearing a glowing belt, while the other was a floating entity with multiple limbs. This floating figure communicated with one of the children, encouraging him to climb a tree in preparation for a pickup. The encounter reached its peak when a UFO resembling Saturn, complete with an outer ring, appeared, and small figures emerged from it, attempting to reach the boy who was entranced in the tree. Alarmed by the scene, the other children quickly sprayed their friend with a garden hose, breaking the spell and preventing what they feared was an imminent abduction. The Ilkley Moor Alien encounter is among the most compelling and debated UFO cases in the UK. On December 1, 1987, Philip Spencer, a former police officer, reported a close encounter with an alleged alien on Ilkley Moor in West Yorkshire, England. Spencer was crossing the moor early that morning to visit his father-in-law when he spotted a small creature, roughly 4 feet tall, with a dark green complexion, an oversized head, and thin limbs. He managed to snap a photograph of the figure before it quickly retreated into the mist. Spencer pursued the being, but soon lost track of it in the fog. Moments later, he observed a large disc-like craft rising from the moor, emitting a loud humming sound as it disappeared into the sky. Although he didn't capture an image of the craft, Spencer later realized he had experienced a lapse in time, arriving much later than he anticipated. Additionally, his compass needle was misaligned, pointing in an incorrect direction. Seeking clarification, Spencer reached out to UFO investigators Jenny Randles and Peter Ho. Experts at Kodak Laboratories analyzed his photo, concluding that there was no evidence of manipulation, though American optical physicist Bruce Maccabee found the image too grainy for a definitive conclusion. On March 16, 1988, Spencer underwent a hypnotherapy session with therapist Jim Singleton, during which he recalled a vivid experience of being immobilized by the alien, transported aboard the craft, and subjected to medical examinations. Under hypnosis, he claimed he was shown visions of catastrophic events on Earth. Nick Pope, a former Ministry of Defense UFO investigator, later ranked this case among the UK's top 10 UFO incidents. Skeptics point out that the blurry photograph lacks sufficient detail to serve as conclusive evidence, arguing that the figure could simply be a person or a cutout. They also question why Spencer didn't photograph the craft itself, noting that an image of the object would have provided stronger evidence for his story. The Rendlesham Forest Incident, often referred to as Britain's Roswell, unfolded over several nights beginning on December 26, 1980, near Raff Woodbridge and Raff-Bentwaters in Suffolk, England. United States Air Force security personnel observed unusual lights descending into the forest and, suspecting an aircraft crash, entered the woods to investigate. They encountered a triangular, luminous object with a metallic appearance and colorful lights, seemingly hovering among the trees. Reports also indicated that farm animals nearby appeared visibly distressed. 2 nights later, on December 28th, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt led a team back to the location. They recorded slightly heightened radiation levels and observed more lights moving erratically, some of which seemed to emit beams down to the ground. Halt's Halt tape, an audio recording he made during the encounter, captured live descriptions and reactions, providing a rare first-hand account of the strange occurrences. The Nash-Fortenberry UFO incident took place on July 14, 1952, when pilots William B. Nash and William H. Fortenberry reported encountering 8 mysterious flying objects in a T formation over Chesapeake Bay, Virginia. This particular sighting is notable for the comprehensive descriptions provided by skilled pilots and confirmation from witnesses on the ground. While flying, Nash and Fortenberry described these objects as highly maneuverable, capable of making rapid and precise turns that exceeded the performance of any aircraft known at the time. The pilots noted the UFOs were luminous and reflective, with a metallic appearance, observing how they moved at high speeds and made steep ascents and descents. By using landmarks and comparing the UFO's speed and movements to those of their own plane, the pilots concluded that these objects seemed to be controlled by some form of intelligence and powered by advanced technology. The Air Force's Project Blue Book recorded the incident as unknown, though some skeptics proposed alternative theories. UFO critic Donald Menzel suggested the pilots might have been deceived by optical illusions caused by environmental factors, such as ground lights distorted by haze or even fireflies. Another skeptic, Stuart Campbell, theorized that the sighting might have been a mirage effect involving Venus, arguing that celestial misidentification could explain the event. The Voronezh UFO sighting on September 27, 1989, stands as one of the most sensational UFO cases from the Soviet Union, renowned for its extensive witness accounts and subsequent media coverage. The event unfolded in a park in Voronezh, Russia, when a group of boys playing football noticed an unusual pink light that quickly turned a deep red. This light formed into a sphere roughly 3 meters wide, which performed puzzling maneuvers, appearing, vanishing, and hovering before descending closer to the ground. Witnesses, mostly children, described an astonishing sight. A tall, 3-eyed humanoid figure, outfitted in bronze boots and a chest-mounted disc, emerged from the sphere, accompanied by a robot-like companion. The alien reportedly carried a device resembling a ray gun, which it used to temporarily disappear a 16-year-old boy from the crowd, who reappeared unharmed once the UFO left the area. The Soviet state news agency TASS quickly reported the incident, giving it national and even international attention. Dr. Genrikh Selenov from the Voronezh Geophysical Laboratory later claimed to have confirmed the landing site using bilocation, a method that purportedly detects objects through psychic means. His investigation revealed a scorched patch of ground, sparking debate over whether it was caused by the landing craft. However, a formal scientific commission found no significant anomalies at the site, with elevated cesium levels attributed to Chernobyl fallout rather than anything extraterrestrial. The 1968 Potosi sheep slayer encounter, a strange and unsettling incident in rural Bolivia. In the early months of 1968, near the remote town of Potosi, Bolivia, a bizarre event unfolded that would leave the local community puzzled and frightened. Valentina Flores, a shepherd, was gathering her sheep at dusk when she noticed something strange. A net of unfamiliar design draped over one of her sheep pens. As she approached to investigate, she saw a small figure beneath the net, meticulously slaughtering the sheep with a sharp, hook-like tool. She initially assumed the figure was a thief, and began shouting and throwing rocks to drive it away. Unexpectedly, instead of fleeing, the creature calmly activated what appeared to be a radio-like device. This caused the net to retract instantly. It then threw its hooked tool directly at Flores, grazing her slightly before the weapon miraculously returned to it, much like a boomerang. Stunned and scared, Flores watched as the figure continued its actions without haste, undeterred by her attempts to intervene. When it had finished, the creature collected its equipment, a peculiar device and a bag in which it seemed to be storing parts of the sheep, and placed both items into a rucksack slung over its shoulder. To Flores's shock, the rucksack then unfolded a set of mechanical legs, and in a display of unearthly technology, the creature rose directly into the sky and disappeared from view. Although the gathering darkness prevented her from seeing the finer details of its form, she later described the entity as a small, humanoid figure equipped with baffling devices, a retractable net, a boomerang-like hook weapon, and a radio-like tool, all unlike anything she or her community had ever seen. The encounter left Flores and the local villagers deeply disturbed, as they discovered that 34 sheep had been killed in the strange attack. A strange encounter in Felixstowe, the mysterious night on Walton Avenue. On the evening of September 20th, 1965, an unsettling incident unfolded in Felixstowe, England, involving 3 young friends out for a drive. Geoffrey Macy, 25, was behind the wheel, accompanied by his companions, Mavis Forrest and Michael Johnson. They had parked along the quiet wooded Walton Avenue, likely aiming to save some fuel. As they talked, Johnson unexpectedly exited the car, disappearing into the darkness, leaving Maisie and Forrest curious but assuming he had gone into the nearby trees to relieve himself. Moments after Johnson wandered away, Maisie and Forrest were both startled by a strange, high-pitched humming sound that filled the air, immediately unsettling them. As Maisie leaned out of the car window to search for the source of the sound, he was shocked to see an unusual, oval-shaped object floating roughly 90 feet above them. The object, glowing intensely with an orange hue, appeared to be around 6 feet wide and lit up the dark countryside with its eerie glow. The next day, Johnson was located and brought to a hospital, where he eventually regained consciousness. When Macy and Forrest visited him, he shared a bizarre story of what he had experienced in the woods along Walton Avenue. He recalled feeling an unexplainable force pulling him from the car, drawing him deeper into the forest. Among the trees, he encountered a strange humanoid figure with large, slanted eyes that seemed to emit a soft glow. This figure appeared to be surrounded by an aura of orange flames, and it was at this moment that Johnson blacked out, remembering nothing further until waking up in the hospital. In his account, Johnson described the mysterious force that had drawn him from the car into the woods, though he couldn't recall exactly how far he had gone. The being he saw, with its glowing eyes and fiery appearance, felt utterly otherworldly. The abrupt memory lapse from the time he fainted to his hospital awakening left Macy, Forrest, and others deeply unsettled and full of unanswered questions about what Johnson truly encountered in the depths of the forest. The abduction of Antonio Larrubia. On the night of September 15, 1977, Antonio Larrubia, a 33-year-old bus driver in Paciencia, Brazil, had an experience that would haunt him forever. While making his way home late in the evening, Antonio noticed an enormous object hovering over a field nearby. The craft, estimated to be around 70 meters across, loomed large in the dark. As he attempted to turn away, a powerful, blinding light engulfed him, freezing him in place. Moments later, he saw three peculiar, mechanical-like figures approaching him. Standing around 1.4 meters tall, these beings had strange, football-shaped heads with rows of mirror-like bands colored in dark and light blue. Each figure sported antennae that extended far above their heads, and their bulky, metallic bodies had an aluminum-like sheen. Their thick, trunk-like arms ended in a single pointed tip, and their faces remained unmoving, offering no clues about their intentions. Unable to move, Antonio found himself brought aboard the massive disc-shaped craft. Inside, he encountered an array of glowing panels and strange instruments. The beings examined him with their thick, trunk-like arms, moving them around his body in a way that felt invasive but oddly pain-free. Throughout the process, the beings communicated in strange, unrecognizable sounds, their faces entirely emotionless as they continued their work. Antonio's sense of time became distorted as he endured what felt like hours within the craft, though only minutes had passed. Overwhelmed by fear, he noticed an unexpected reaction from the beings. His loud scream seemed to disorient them briefly, causing a momentary weakness. Realizing the opportunity, Antonio managed to break free, running from the craft as fast as he could until he reached home. Exhausted and terrified, he relayed his story to his family, who believed him due to his shaken state and vivid recounting of the experience. News of the event quickly spread, drawing attention from local authorities and UFO researchers. Investigators interviewed Antonio extensively, and his consistent details held up under scrutiny, though no physical evidence could substantiate the encounter. The Kenneth Arnold Incident. On June 24, 1947, a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold witnessed a phenomenon that would later be known as one of the foundational UFO sightings in U.S. history. Arnold was flying a routine route from Chehalis to Yakima, Washington, when he veered slightly off course to assist in the ongoing search for a missing Marine Corps C-46 transport plane near Mount Rainier. Amid the clear skies, Arnold was suddenly captivated by an unexpected sight: 9 luminous, unidentified objects flying in formation near the mountain. Arnold calculated that these objects were traveling at an unprecedented speed, estimating their velocity at around 1,200 miles per hour, a rate far beyond the capacity of any known aircraft at the time. He watched the objects dart across a roughly 50-mile stretch, spanning from Mount Baker to Mount Adams, all in just about 2 minutes. Strikingly, the objects appeared to be flying in a staggered diagonal formation that reminded Arnold of saucers skipping on water, an analogy that would inadvertently popularize the term flying saucers. At first, Arnold suspected the objects might be secret military planes. He observed them closely and noted their unique, flattened crescent shapes with surfaces that glinted brightly in the sunlight. Their unusual flight behavior stood out, with sudden altitude adjustments and swift directional shifts that seemed beyond the capabilities of current aviation technology. Upon reaching Yakima, Arnold eagerly shared his experience with friends and airport personnel. Yet Arnold's respected standing as a businessman and seasoned pilot made many take his report seriously. The story quickly drew media attention, with the East Oregonian publishing an article featuring Arnold's interview. The story spread across the nation, becoming the first widely publicized UFO sighting in modern times. Bird Creatures of Var. In 1962, a French businessman, referred to only as Mr. S., had an unusual encounter with bird-like entities on an isolated road in Var, France. During a stormy night drive, Mr. S. noticed figures obstructing his path. He later described them as having bird-like heads and feathered bodies. When he moved closer, the creatures abruptly darted toward his vehicle, causing him to quickly drive away. In his rearview mirror, he observed the creatures moving towards a glowing, dark blue object hovering in a nearby field. This object, shaped like 2 plates placed one on top of the other, seemed to interact with the bird-like entities, which were soon pulled into the craft by a whirlwind-like suction. The UFO made a low, humming sound before ascending swiftly and disappearing from view. This mysterious encounter raised questions about the nature of the creatures and their link to the UFO, whether they might be its pilots, passengers, or perhaps even biological entities associated with it. Known to be a reliable businessman and not interested in UFOs, Mr. S chose to stay anonymous to avoid the potential ridicule such a story might bring. The Dice Devil of Ector County, also known as the Ector County Entity or the Monson Mystery Man, is an unusual incident reported on September 3, 1989, near Monson, Arkansas. 3 teenagers, Burl Willis, David Willis, and Robert Miller, were at the Willis family home when they were startled by loud noises echoing from nearby woods. Shortly after, they saw a strange orange light moving among the trees, approximately 300 yards away. Intrigued, they armed themselves with a shotgun and headed into the woods to investigate. In the forest, they encountered a mysterious figure, a man with deep red skin, jet black hair, a black mustache, and bumps resembling horns on his forehead. Dressed in a suit, he approached the boys with a smile and spoke to them telepathically in what seemed like a European accent, asking for directions to the nearest town. When they pointed him vaguely toward Monson, he handed them a small carved stone dice marked with unfamiliar symbols, suggesting it could improve their luck in games. When the boys looked up again, the man had disappeared. The encounter received mixed responses, with a local newspaper later dismissing it as a prank. However, this incident aligned with a surge in local UFO reports, documented by the Ector County UFO Research Association. In the years that followed, both the Willis and Miller families suffered a series of personal tragedies, which they came to attribute to the cursed dice. Hoping to end the streak of misfortune, the Willis family destroyed the dice in 1991, but they claimed the series of misfortunes continued. The Crawfordsville Monster was sighted in 1891 over Crawfordsville, Indiana. Described as an atmospheric beast, the entity was an enormous shape in the sky, estimated to be around 20 feet long and 8 feet wide, with a body devoid of a recognizable head but marked by glowing red eyes at what appeared to be its front. Witnesses noted it was lined with rippling fins, allowing it to drift strangely through the air. The creature appeared to be in some form of distress, producing sounds akin to groans and releasing a warm, breath-like vapor. Some believed the creature to be a supernatural omen, while others suggested it could be an undiscovered life form or even a visitor from beyond Earth. Skeptics, however, proposed natural explanations, suggesting it might have been a flock of birds disturbed in flight or a case of collective delusion. On September 29, 1989, an enigmatic event began to unfold along Los Patelas Beach in the coastal town of Canil de la Frontera, Spain, drawing unexpected attention to the usually peaceful area. Over several nights, mysterious lights began to appear in the sky above the beach. These lights moved in ways that defied conventional aircraft behavior, performing sharp, complex maneuvers that seemed to push the limits of physics. Among those intrigued were 5 local friends: Isabel, her brother Lazaro, Pedro Sanchez, Loli Bermudez, and Pedro Gonzalez, who were determined to uncover the mystery behind these nightly displays. As they observed, they noticed the lights seemed to come from structured, solid crafts, with some witnesses even discerning distinct shapes beneath the illumination. To add to the strangeness, several onlookers reported encountering tall, thin, humanoid figures near the beach, with unusual, luminous eyes and metallic clothing that reflected the lights above. Fueled by the numerous detailed testimonies, the phenomenon attracted the interest of investigators and ufologists, who scoured the beach and surrounding areas, hoping to uncover evidence that might support theories of extraterrestrial visitation. Yet, despite the efforts of experts and enthusiasts, no definitive evidence surfaced to confirm or explain the sighting. The Cussac Incident. On August 29, 1967, in the tranquil village of Cussac, France, 2 young siblings, François Delpit and his sister Anne-Marie, were minding their family's herd with their dog nearby when they encountered something extraordinary. François was the first to notice an unusual, shiny object high above, an orb about 2 meters in width, descending gradually towards a neighboring field. At first, the children's curiosity was innocent as they watched the metallic sphere gently land. But soon, they realized they weren't alone. Near this object were 4 small black figures that looked somewhat human. François later referred to them as little devils, creatures around 1 meter tall, clad in a gleaming, black, silk-like material. These figures had strikingly elongated limbs and narrow, pointed heads, chins, and noses, making them appear both eerie and somewhat fantastical. One of these unusual beings seemed focused on something in the grass, while another held an object resembling a small, reflective mirror. The first figure stopped its activity and quickly leapt headfirst into the top of the sphere, followed by the second and third figures. The last figure hesitated only long enough to gather its mirror-like item before following the others. Inside the craft, a low humming sound emerged as it slowly began to rise. Ascending gradually, it suddenly sped up, vanishing quietly into the sky. Francois and Anne-Marie, left alone and bewildered, described the experience as silent, surreal, and otherworldly. They hurried home to inform their father, who took them at their word and contacted the authorities immediately. When local police arrived to investigate, they found strange impressions in the ground that aligned with the children's descriptions of the craft's landing gear. The story caught the attention of several authorities, including the French National Gendarmerie and organizations studying unexplained aerial phenomena, such as the French Air Force and GPAN. Investigators noted the siblings' descriptions were remarkably consistent, even when the two were interviewed separately. Despite extensive investigation, there was no concrete evidence to confirm the encounter. The physical markings and the children's accounts were the only evidence recorded, yet this incident remains one of France's most credible and closely studied UFO encounters. The Lakenheath-Bentwaters incident unfolded on the nights of August 13 to 14, 1956, featuring both radar and visual encounters with unidentified flying objects over two military bases in eastern England, RAF Lakenheath and RF Bentwaters. This case garnered considerable interest due to the precise radar data and detailed eyewitness reports provided by both Royal Air Force and U.S. Air Force personnel. The incident began when radar operators at RF Bentwaters detected a fast-moving object approaching from the sea at incredible speeds, estimated to be several thousand miles per hour. Soon after, additional objects were tracked moving northeast, exhibiting unusual flight patterns that included sharp directional changes, sudden bursts of acceleration, and the ability to merge and separate. Around 10:55 p.m., another high-speed object from the east appeared on radar, visibly flying over the base. A nearby C-47 aircraft crew reported seeing a bright light moving swiftly beneath their plane, while RF Lakenheath personnel witnessed luminous objects executing intricate aerial maneuvers. The ability of these objects to combine into a single radar return, then separate and vanish from the scope, deepened the mystery. The situation escalated further when RAF fighters were scrambled to engage the UFOs. During the operation, a Venom fighter pilot reportedly attempted to intercept one object, which maneuvered behind his aircraft, leading to a tense chase that unsettled the crew. The incident later became a subject of investigation by the Condon Committee, which deemed it significant and left it unexplained, suggesting the possibility of a genuine UFO event. However, skeptics like Philip Klass and James E. MacDonald offered alternative theories, attributing the observations to atmospheric conditions or celestial misidentifications, which they argued could account for the strange behaviors seen. In 2005, the quiet farming community of Chiang Rai, Thailand, was shaken by sightings of a strange apparition that soon earned the name Ghostly Scarecrow of Chiang Rai. Locals who encountered it reported that the figure bore an unsettling resemblance to a small humanoid, distinguished by its unusual yellowish skin and unsettling red eyes. One of the first sightings occurred early one morning when a 51-year-old farmer caught a glimpse of something hovering above a rice field. Thinking it was a scarecrow at first, he quickly realized this figure was alive. Its appearance was striking: a tiny mouth, absent arms, and pointed feet that never touched the ground, but allowed it to float mysteriously. Alarmed, the farmer gathered nearby residents, and soon more villagers arrived to catch sight of the apparition themselves. They described a faint, otherworldly glow surrounding the figure, which gave off a haunting, almost sorrowful expression. For about an hour, the scarecrow held their attention as it hovered, until it suddenly shifted, stretched upward, and ascended into the sky. The eerie occurrence fueled rampant theories throughout the community. already steeped in folklore. Some speculated the figure was a controlled puppet, while others leaned toward an extraterrestrial explanation. Despite an official investigation by local authorities, no conclusive answers emerged, leaving the mystery of the ghostly scarecrow to remain unsolved and feeding into local legends. One calm evening in September 1950, an unusual encounter occurred in Philadelphia, forever puzzling the two officers involved. Philadelphia police officers Joe Keene and John Collins were patrolling when they noticed a strange, glowing mass descending from the sky, coming to rest on an empty street. As they cautiously approached, they saw what looked like a blob of radiant purple gelatin, softly illuminating its surroundings with an eerie glow. On closer inspection, the substance exhibited subtle, almost rhythmic pulsations, giving it a strangely lifelike quality. When one of the officers reached out to touch the blob, it began to dissolve instantly, leaving behind only a faint residue that evaporated within moments. Within 30 minutes, the entire mass had vanished without a trace, leaving the officers with nothing but their accounts of the bizarre incident. The ephemeral nature of the Purple Glob, combined with its disappearance, made further analysis impossible. Speculation arose about what this substance could have been, but no conclusions were ever drawn. The Tulli Papyrus is often cited as a mysterious artifact from ancient Egypt, linked to unusual aerial phenomena witnessed during the time of Pharaoh Thutmose III. According to accounts, this document was discovered in 1933 by Alberto Tulli, the former director of the Vatican Museum's Egyptology division, while he was in Cairo. The papyrus allegedly describes a blazing disk moving through the sky, which emitted a foul stench and reportedly caused distress among those observing it. The strange object, thought to measure around 50 meters in length and 5 meters in width, is said to have drawn close to the pharaoh's residence. In the days that followed, additional glowing objects filled the skies, outshining the sun and casting shadows across the land. Eventually, these phenomena rose and drifted southward, leaving a mysterious shower of fish and marine debris in their wake. After Tulli passed away, the papyrus was passed to his brother, only to disappear shortly after. Boris de Raschwiltz, an Italian Egyptologist, later claimed to have found a transcription that detailed what he believed was a historical record of UFO-like sightings. However, the authenticity of the Tulli Papyrus is widely debated. Notable ufologists, including Jacques Vallée and Chris Aubeck, question its validity, noting that de Raschwiltz supposedly never had access to the original document. Additionally, prominent skeptic Stuart Campbell argued that the translation might have been influenced by Gardner's Egyptian Grammar, published in 1927, which raises doubts regarding the document's credibility as a true ancient text. The Xingqian Flying Jellyfish Incident. On October 19, 1998, a highly unusual event unfolded in the skies over Xingqian, China, captivating more than 140 eyewitnesses and appearing on multiple radar systems. This was no ordinary UFO sighting. It triggered an urgent military response, including the deployment of a Jian-6 fighter jet, marking it as one of China's most credible UFO encounters. The incident began when 4 military radar stations in Hubei province picked up an unidentified object hovering near a military flight training base in Zhengzhou. At first, ground observers saw only a faint light in the sky, but as it grew larger they realized the object was either descending or coming closer. Recognizing that the object did not match any known aircraft profile, the base commander, Colonel Lee, ordered a Jian-6 fighter jet to intercept it. As the jet neared, the crew was astonished by what they described: a massive, glowing object that resembled a jellyfish or mushroom, with bright, dangling lights hanging from beneath it. Hovering around 4,000 meters above Qingxian County, this mysterious entity demonstrated incredible agility, effortlessly evading the jet and defying attempts to approach. Throughout the encounter, the object appeared to play a cat-and-mouse game with the fighter jet, sometimes positioning itself directly above the aircraft, as if to assert control. The intense aerial display heightened the pilot's sense of threat, prompting him to request permission to fire the onboard 20mm automatic cannon. Ground control, however, denied the request, fearing potential consequences of engaging the unknown craft, and instructed the pilot to continue monitoring instead. After a prolonged chase, the mission had to be abandoned due to the jet's fuel limitations. The UFO then vanished into the night sky, eluding further attempts to intercept it. By the time additional fighter jets could respond, the strange object had already disappeared, leaving Chinese authorities with more questions than answers about this extraordinary encounter. The mysterious abductions of Pier Zanfretta. On a cold December night in 1978, Pier Zanfretta, a 26-year-old Italian security guard, encountered an experience that would come to be one of Italy's most talked-about alien abduction cases. While on a routine patrol in the quiet town of Torriglia near Genoa, a series of strange events interrupted his duties. As Zanfretta inspected a seemingly empty residence, his patrol car suddenly stalled. The engine, lights, and radio all failed simultaneously, plunging him into silence. In the darkness, he noticed 4 moving lights in the garden, assuming them to be flashlights from potential intruders. Grasping his revolver and flashlight, he cautiously moved closer, only to feel an unexpected tap on his shoulder. When he turned, Zanfretta was confronted by a terrifying sight. A towering creature at least 10 feet tall, with deeply wrinkled greenish skin and round, yellow, triangular eyes. The being's face was crossed with red veins, and its mouth was obscured by a peculiar apparatus. Stunned and horrified, Zanfretta dropped his flashlight, recovering it quickly before bolting toward his car. However, he stopped short at the sight of a gigantic triangular UFO hovering behind the house. The craft emitted a blinding light and began to ascend, radiating intense heat before it vanished with a sharp hissing sound. In shock, Zanfretta managed to radio his security headquarters, but his message was incoherent as he rambled about strange, non-human figures. Alarmed by his distress, the dispatcher sent a second patrol unit, which found Zanfretta sprawled on the ground, visibly shaken and disoriented. Oddly, despite the freezing night, his clothing remained unusually warm. Later, military police investigating the site uncovered 2 horseshoe-shaped depressions in the frost near the house, possibly marking the landing gear of an unknown vehicle. Just a few weeks later, on December 23rd, Zanfretta agreed to a hypnosis session with psychotherapist Dr. Mauro Moretti. Under hypnosis, Zanfretta vividly recalled his terrifying experience, describing how the alien beings had abducted him, taking him to an intensely lit, hot place where they subjected him to examinations and communicated through a device that emitted light and translated their speech. He claimed these beings hailed from a distant planet called Tonia in the 3rd galaxy and spoke ominously of a future return in greater numbers. In the following months and years, Pier Zanfretta reported several other abductions, each adding further detail to his unusual story. Investigative journalist Rino Di Stefano took a keen interest, meticulously documenting Zanfretta's encounters and publishing numerous reports. Despite skepticism and ridicule, Di Stefano and others found Zanfretta's palpable fear and unwavering consistency difficult to ignore, and his story quickly became part of Italian UFO folklore. In July 1959, a chilling event rattled Alor Island, Indonesia, starting with the sudden disappearance of a young boy near the island's capital. After a frantic search, locals found the 6-year-old alone in an abandoned field, dazed yet unharmed. When asked what had happened, he told an unbelievable story. He'd been taken by mysterious men in blue to a nearby forest, where they conducted strange examinations and offered him any food he wished. His account spread through the community, alarming residents, and soon more sightings of these bizarre entities followed. The boy and other witnesses described the beings as tall, about 1.8 meters, with striking red skin, silvery hair, and fitted blue uniforms, each wearing metallic headgear. Some accounts claimed these humanoids wielded a device capable of immobilizing people. Concerned by the escalating situation, local police, under the leadership of Director Alor Island, organized an armed response. Late one night, Island and his officers set up an ambush, equipped with rifles and submachine guns, determined to confront the intruders. Yet despite being mere meters from their targets, their gunfire yielded no bodies. Only torn foliage and peculiar tracks were left behind. The beings escaped with remarkable agility, reportedly leaping vast distances while remaining unharmed. Following this eerie standoff, several islanders reported seeing a strange, egg-shaped craft hovering above the island, which many believed signaled the being's departure. The incident left a lasting impression, especially after being chronicled by R.J. Selatan, a former Indonesian Air Force official, in his book UFO Salatu Masalah Dunia Masakini. The sugar bundle encounter took place near Jotao Losas, Cuba, in 1915, when two armed guards on horseback were patrolling a sugarcane field at night. Suddenly, their horses stopped in their tracks, snorting anxiously. The guards then noticed a small white bundle lying by the trail, which seemed lifeless at first but soon began to move. As the bundle crawled toward them, the horses' fear escalated to a point of uncontrollable panic. One guard, feeling threatened, fired several shots at the approaching bundle. To their horror, each shot only seemed to make it grow larger, eventually reaching nearly the height of their horses. Overcome with terror, the guards dismounted and ran from the scene, leaving their horses behind. They returned the next morning to find their horses safe, wandering in the fields. This event, first recorded by UFO researcher Albert Rosales, is one of Cuba's earliest accounts of a possible extraterrestrial or cryptid presence. In the caves of Chhattisgarh, India, ancient rock art has intrigued researchers with images that may depict extraterrestrial beings and unidentified flying objects. These paintings, estimated to be around 10,000 years old, were studied by Dr. J.R., who noted that the figures don't resemble any local animals or traditional human forms. Among these are depictions of creatures with features akin to kangaroos and giraffes, species that aren't native to India, as well as figures with appearances similar to popular representations of extraterrestrials. Some figures seem to wear attire resembling spacesuits. Local folklore tells of the Rohela people, described as beings who arrived in circular craft from the sky and occasionally abducted villagers who would then vanish without a trace. Dr. Bhatt's findings were intriguing enough to warrant a request for further analysis by NASA and ISRO. Enfield Horror Encounter. On April 25, 1973, in Enfield, Illinois, two separate encounters with a bizarre creature were reported by a young boy, Greg Garrett, and a local man, Henry McDaniel. Garrett was in his backyard when he came face to face with an unusual creature. He described it as having 3 legs, slimy gray skin, small claws, and glowing red eyes. According to Garrett, the creature stomped on his feet, damaging his shoes before he managed to run away. Just 30 minutes later, McDaniel, alerted by his children who heard scratching at their door, spotted the same creature outside his house. McDaniel's description matched Garrett's, but added that the creature was around 4.5 feet tall, with 2 large pink eyes and short arms. He fired at it with a .22 caliber pistol, but the creature responded with a hissing sound, similar to that of a wildcat, and bounded away, covering an astonishing 50 feet in just 3 leaps. McDaniel believed he might have hit it, but the creature seemed unaffected and vanished into the night. When state troopers investigated, they discovered peculiar 3-footed tracks near McDaniel's property. News of the sightings quickly spread, drawing both media attention and crowds of monster hunters. Among them was news director Rick Rainbow, who claimed he and his team had seen the creature and heard its eerie cries. Later, cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman visited the town, noting that the Enfield horror shared characteristics with other elusive cryptids. Though no further sightings have been reported in decades, this creature remains a mystery, with many still speculating about its origin and nature. The Petrozavodsk Phenomenon took place on September 20, 1977, and was observed over a vast area spanning from Scandinavia to the Soviet Far East. This incident, happening amid Cold War tensions, raised international alarms, as some speculated it could be a test of a new Soviet weapon. In the early hours, witnesses described a strange glowing object illuminating the city of Petrozavodsk, projecting beams that resembled jellyfish-like tendrils. Similar sightings were reported across multiple locations, with accounts from police officers, pilots, and airport staff who observed bright, complex light formations moving rapidly through the sky, pausing at times and making abrupt directional changes. Radar operators picked up what appeared to be a substantial object, noting its sudden shifts in movement and hovering capabilities. The Soviet government launched an extensive inquiry, suggesting that the Cosmos 955 satellite's re-entry or launch might explain the phenomenon. The Prospect Encounter. In the early hours of January 27, 1977, 19-year-old Lee Parrish had an extraordinary experience that would haunt him for years to come. Parrish was driving home near Prospect, Kentucky, around 1 a.m. when he noticed a massive rectangular object floating in the sky. Within moments, his car radio went silent, and he felt a disturbing sensation, as if some external force had seized control of his vehicle. Once home, Parrish noticed unusual physical symptoms, including bloodshot and sore eyes, but what troubled him most was a 30-minute time gap he couldn't account for. Determined to uncover what happened, he later turned to hypnosis to probe his memory for any hidden recollections of the missing half hour. During the hypnosis session, Parrish described being transported from his car into a large circular chamber, where he was confronted by three mysterious beings, each with a distinct appearance that filled him with unease. The first, which he called monolithic, was an imposing 20-foot-tall figure with a dark, tombstone-like shape and a single pointed limb extending outward. The second entity, which Parrish perceived as a leader, stood around 6 feet tall and had a stark white, wedge-shaped head. Its arms remained stiff and unmoving, and it emitted a strange rhythmic noise, like the scraping of teeth against each other. The third being, the smallest and red in color, had a rectangular form and seemed hesitant around Parrish. At one point, this red figure extended a limb to touch Parrish's head, creating an icy, tingling sensation that felt like an examination or scan. The touch left Parrish rattled, and he watched as the red entity recoiled, positioning itself behind the white figure, which in turn moved to stand behind the massive black form. Eventually, the towering black figure began to retreat, and as it did, Parrish was suddenly enveloped in a warm sensation, a sharp contrast to the cold touch of the red being. Without warning, the encounter ended, and Parrish found himself back in his car, alone and confused. The strange rectangular object had vanished from the sky, leaving Parrish to grapple with his unusual physical symptoms and the disorienting memories of what he'd seen. The experience left him deeply unsettled, both physically and emotionally, as he struggled to understand the intentions of the entities he encountered and the nature of their strange examination. In 1977, an otherworldly incident in Harrow, Washington, reportedly unfolded involving a young boy named Jose Cantu. Early on the morning of January 19th, 9-year-old Jose was awakened by an unusual sight outside his bedroom window. Startled and eager to share what he'd seen near the family's farmhouse, he ran to wake his mother, pleading with her to take a look. She declined, however, leaving Jose determined to investigate on his own. What Jose encountered was bizarre. A group of small greenish beings, each standing about 3 feet tall, with a single enormous eye on their circular heads. Their appearance was further marked by rough, bristly hair and snout-like noses reminiscent of a pig. But what truly captivated Jose was how these creatures moved. Instead of walking, each one sat atop a mechanical base, like a rotating seat attached to a wide platform covered in tiny wheels. These bases seemed to enable a hovering or swiveling motion, allowing them to glide slightly above the ground. Peculiar mushroom-shaped antennas jutted from the tops of their heads. José's detailed description of these creatures, particularly their strange transportation devices, stood out from typical UFO or alien sightings. His account gained local attention, eventually being featured in the Toppenish Review under the title, Harrow Youth Reports UFOs with Greenish Creatures. The tale of the Veggie Man originates from a lone encounter reported in 1968 near the town of Font, West Virginia. According to Jennings Frederick, this strange figure appeared to be a blend of human and plant characteristics. Standing over 7 feet tall, it had an extremely thin frame and eyes that shifted colors between red and yellow. Its arms were abnormally long, with thin fingers ending in suction cup-like tips, each topped with a small thorn. Frederick recounted a surreal experience in the forest, where he suddenly perceived a rapid, high-pitched gibberish that transformed into comprehensible language, suggesting a form of telepathy. Through this unusual communication, the creature assured Frederick, saying, "Do not fear me. I want to communicate. I come in peace. I know of you all and need medical assistance." Despite the message's calm tone, events took an unexpected turn as the being abruptly lunged forward, holding Frederick tightly and using its thorned fingers to pierce his skin, drawing blood. Afterward, the creature retreated swiftly up a hill, accompanied by a deep humming sound that Frederick interpreted as the noise of an unseen craft departing. This encounter spurred speculation that the Veggie Man might be a visitor from another world with access to advanced spacefaring technology. Though Frederick's account fascinated many and prompted searches, no additional sightings of the Veggie Man have ever been recorded. The 1566 celestial phenomenon over Basel, Switzerland, is a notable historical event observed on multiple occasions, including July 27, 28th, and August 7th. This event was carefully documented by historian Samuel Coxius in a pamphlet, which detailed peculiar sunrises where the sun appeared unusually red and dim, casting a strange, ominous glow over the entire city. The blood-red hue was so intense that it seemed to darken the air itself, an effect witnessed by both urban residents and those in nearby rural areas. On August 7th, reports described large black spheres moving methodically across the sky, appearing to engage in what seemed like an aerial conflict. According to witnesses, some of these spheres turned fiery red before breaking apart. At the time, these occurrences were interpreted as religious or supernatural omens, consistent with 16th century European beliefs. However, some modern ufologists view these accounts as potential historical evidence of unidentified aerial phenomena, suggesting that what was seen may have been an early record of a mysterious event in the sky. The Beast of Purple Trail. Deep in Durrani-Eastman Park, along the famously eerie Purple Trail, stories have emerged of a spectral figure known as the Beast of Purple Trail. This distinct area, marked by a haunting natural arch formed from collapsed trees, has been coined a gateway by locals, where even skeptical hikers have reported unsettling sensations, a strange heaviness in the air and a shadowed quality to the light, as if an unseen presence lingered. Encounters vary from subtle sightings to full glimpses of the creature. Many describe a small, androgynous figure with an oversized, round head and unnaturally large eyes. These eyes are often reported as either dark voids or glowing red, creating an intense, silent stare that appears both passive and piercing. The creature has no visible mouth, which adds to its hauntingly alien appearance, drawing comparisons to eerie characters from horror films or creatures like the neomorph in Alien. Some witnesses speculate it may have hidden or retractable features, hinting at unknown origins or biology. While there's no official record of any harm caused by the beast, its silent, watchful nature and chilling gaze have given it a permanent place in local lore. In 1971, an unsettling incident occurred in Palos Verdes, California, involving two locals, Peter Rodriguez and John Hodges. On the night of August 17th, as the two were leaving a friend's home, they encountered something surreal, a pair of enormous, brain-like creatures resting in the middle of the road. These bizarre entities were shrouded in an unusual mist and emitted a bluish hue. Each brain differed in size. One was roughly the size of a large softball, while the other was as large as a human torso. The larger one seemed to have an eye-like feature embedded in its frontal region. Soon after spotting these creatures, the two noticed something even more peculiar: a significant loss of time. What should have been a brief, 10-minute drive unexpectedly stretched into a 2-hour period of missing time, a phenomenon often reported in alleged alien abduction cases. Years later, in 1976, Hodges underwent hypnotic regression and recalled additional details. He claimed that after dropping off Rodriguez, he returned home to find the brain-like entities waiting for him. According to Hodges, they led him to a spacecraft where he encountered tall, gray-skinned beings with webbed hands and feet who communicated telepathically. Hodges learned that the brain-like entities served as organic translators, helping these beings communicate with humans. During this encounter, Hodges was reportedly shown visions of catastrophic events and was warned about humanity's reckless use of nuclear power, paralleling messages from other alleged extraterrestrial encounters. He claimed these beings also foretold wars and predicted that humanity would eventually come to accept alien life, though none of these predictions came to pass. Despite this, the encounter deeply impacted both Hodges and Rodriguez, leaving them with lasting questions about the experience and its possible implications. The Morristown UFO hoax unfolded over several weeks in early 2009, beginning on January 5th when peculiar red lights started appearing in the skies above Morris County, New Jersey. Over the following nights, residents spotted these lights 4 more times, triggering a flood of calls to police departments and widespread media attention. Ultimately, it was revealed that these lights were part of an elaborate prank. The instigators intended to spotlight the importance of skepticism within UFO research. They tied road flares to helium-filled balloons, releasing them to mimic an inexplicable aerial event. This seemingly simple strategy turned out to be highly effective, deceiving not only local residents but also nearby airport staff, who were unable to trace the lights on radar. Each new sighting on January 6th, January 29th, February 7th, and February 17th drew more people and generated further media coverage. On April 1st, 2009, the hoaxers came forward, sharing video documentation of their balloon preparations and explaining their goal to encourage critical thinking in UFO studies. While some people supported their motives, viewing it as a push for rational analysis, others condemned their actions for creating unnecessary alarm and misusing emergency resources. Legal consequences followed, with the pranksters ultimately pleading guilty to disorderly conduct and receiving community service as their punishment. In May 1933, a peculiar event took place near Farmersville, Texas, involving 3 brothers, Clyde, Sid, and Sibley Lamb, who were working on their family's farm when they noticed their dogs frantically barking at an unusual figure. This strange entity, which came to be known as the Farmersville Green Man, was described as a tiny, green-skinned being standing no more than 18 inches tall. It had a rubbery texture, a deep green color, and a small, sombrero-like cap that appeared to be an extension of its body. The creature remained entirely still and silent, even as the dogs attacked it, ultimately tearing it apart. Its remains reportedly contained organ-like structures similar to those of humans, and blood spattered the ground around it. The brothers revisited the site several times, noting that the remains seemed to be disintegrating rapidly. By the time their parents arrived to inspect the scene, no evidence of the creature was left. Years later, the story gained attention after Sibley Lamb's grandson shared the account with the Center for UFO Research, though specific details remain sparse due to a missing interview transcript with Sibley Lamb. The telepathic football is the nickname given to a bizarre creature encountered on January 12, 2002 in San Rafael, Chile. 2 teenagers, John F. and Nelson C., were out searching for a pet snake that had gone missing when their dogs began howling and whimpering strangely. Curious, the teens spotted what they initially thought was a stray dog about 30 meters away. Attempting to scare it off, they threw rocks, but the creature responded in an unexpected way, hopping toward them on 2 legs in a motion similar to a rabbit's. As it approached, the creature stood upright on its hind legs, and both boys suddenly felt an odd sensation, described by Nelson as an electric shock-like jolt. Nelson observed that the creature had a head resembling that of a large dog with a flattened nose, slanted, pale red eyes that only seemed visible when it turned, and large, round ears. It also appeared to have short arms with elbow joints and hands with 3 fingers. Some have speculated that this telepathic football might be an undiscovered native species, an extraterrestrial being, or possibly a deformed animal. Adding a further eerie dimension, Nelson claimed to receive a telepathic message from the creature, which warned him not to look directly at it and advised him to run away. This telepathic element has only deepened the mystery surrounding the strange appearance and behavior of this cryptid. On the night of November 2, 1977, the quiet town of Riri, Idaho became the backdrop for a peculiar and unnerving encounter. Local residents Will Bay and Guy Tossi were driving home when their journey took a sudden, bizarre turn. A saucer-shaped object, illuminated by vibrant orange and green lights, appeared directly in their path, forcing them to a stop. Moments later, a dome on the craft opened, and an unusual figure emerged, making its way toward their car. The being climbed into the driver's seat, taking control of the vehicle. Its appearance was unsettling. Its skin had a distinct texture, likened to the surface of a cantaloupe. The strange entity drove the car a short distance off-road, stopping in a nearby field. Tossi, seizing an opportunity, fled the vehicle and ran for help, but an eerie green light pursued him, intensifying his panic. Meanwhile, Bay, still inside, watched the creature interact with another figure, using a strange bird-like vocalization. After briefly commandeering the car, the being exited and rejoined the second figure before both returned to the craft, which then ascended into the sky with startling speed. The encounter left Bay and Tossie deeply disturbed, but theirs wasn't the only experience that night. Other local reports describe mysterious lights moving across the sky and accounts of similar carjacking attempts by strange humanoid figures